How is everybody doing today? Not loud enough. A little louder. This is an awesome panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're doubled up. You have a mic and a mic. Oh, okay. Okay. We have an awesome panel for you. We're going to be discussing KPIs for coding boot camps. First, we have Albrey. And Robert. And Mercedes. And the last chair is for dramatic effect. Okay, so the first thing that I'll do is introduce myself. My name is Kisha Michelle Richardson. I am an entrepreneur, an engineer, and an educator. I will not go into my bio. The panel is about these guys. So we'll just get started by asking them to give us a little bit about their backgrounds, and then we'll get right into the discussion. Starting with you.
Hey guys, my name is Albrey Brown. I am currently an enrollment specialist at Hack Reactor, and I am also the founder of Telegraph Academy. Telegraph Academy is a 12-week boot camp specifically geared towards people of color. We've been around for about a year. We have about 55 graduates. Most have gotten jobs, some still in the job search, and I'm really happy to be here.
Round of applause. Robert.
Hi, I'm Robert Murray. I'm currently an instructor and full stack engineer at Galvanize. We have 7 campuses across the country, opening 2 more soon, and about 1,200 graduates from our program so far. Just moved to the Bay, but I've been a programmer for about 20 years.
Awesome.
Thank you. Mercedes.
Hi everybody, my name is Mercedes Bent. Sounds like a car name. We can talk about that later if you want. I work at General Assembly as a general manager. I've been there for almost 4.5 years, ever since kind of the beginning of GA's education business back in 2012. So have seen a crazy, crazy ride over the years. And I just love this industry and this space, and excited to talk more with you guys today.
Awesome. So the first question that I have is around the style of teaching of each coding school. Anyone can start.
Cool. So can I get raise your hand if you've heard of a coding boot camp, like in depth? Like okay, great. So coding boot camps, right? All day, every day, most of the time. Ours is about 11 hours a day, 6 days a week. Which is, I just found out, is 26 more hours than the regular work week. And it's really intense. I think the educational style is totally different. It's the opposite, actually, than what you would get in like a college environment. It's more hands-on, it's more collaborative, and we aim to teach people skills that they can learn themselves, autonomy, et cetera, rather than kind of like in college you hit the books a lot. It's more about knowledge-based. So, you know, I think that there are a lot of different paradigms that coding boot camps have used that are like the opposite of college, that have accelerated the way that our students learn, and it's the reason why we can have such short cycles for them. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I just rambled on for 20 seconds, but if I did, I hope you learned something.
I think for us, our program is a little longer. Ours is 24 weeks, again, 9 to 5, but most of the students are expected to put in a few more hours at home each evening. So I think they're probably working on 10 to 12-hour days, typically. It's split up into 4 sections. The initial chunk, the initial 5 weeks is pretty intense. And then we try, as instructors, and hand off to the students to have them get to the place where they would need to be in industry, being able to teach themselves things and pick up new concepts on the job. So we try and instill that as part of the program as well.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to kind of talk about in terms of coding boot camps in this industry that sprung up about 4 years ago in 2012. Dev Bootcamp is often cited as the one that did this model first. Now, if you think about an immersive bootcamp training model, that's been around for a really long time in lots of different industries.
Yep.
What we've done is taken an approach to say, what formerly was a skill that was taught as computer science in college, there was really only one path to become a web developer or a software engineer. In a couple of years ago. And what our institutions did is say, you can switch into a different industry much later in your career. And, is it really necessary that you have to have gone through 4 years of an institution and get a credential? This is still kind of a hotly debated topic, I would say, amongst hiring managers. What is the difference between a computer scientist and someone who studied computer science and someone who comes out of these type of boot camp programs, and I'm sure we'll get into that a bit more. But I think what I really enjoy about our teaching style is we really practiced project-based learning. So what these, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. formats allow for is for students to work on projects without any interruption, and they're going through real-world applications. We're not starting, so I actually started out as a comp sci major. That didn't go over too well, but we're not, starting out with, okay, let's learn about, how to build a sorting machine. They're going, and sometimes they do, but they're saying, here's a real world problem, let's build a resume page for yourself. And so let's put this in the context of something that you understand. And I think that's one of the most unique parts about our teaching style is we always try to make it really practical and applicable.
Thank you. The second question is a little more rough. Just so that you know, Telegraph Academy is a partner of Hack Reactor, which is one of the most renowned programs in the country. Galvanize, same thing, one of the most renowned programs in the country. General Assembly is also one of the most renowned programs in the country. What do you think the key performance indicators are to ensure that the educational program is producing positive outcomes, both from a diversity standpoint and also from just a quality standpoint? What we're finding now is that candidates have some of the skills, but aren't perfect on day one. What are some of the KPIs that you're using to first ensure that quality is improving and that you're continuously improving and that diversity is also improving?
Yeah, I can start. So I can start with first the general KPIs that we use as far as product. Mm-hmm. I would say our boot camp is a product. Its goal is to get people jobs. So we're very results driven in terms of how many people at the end of the program are getting jobs, staying in jobs, how many companies are saying that these people are awesome. Cisco just did a profile on us a couple of weeks ago talking about hiring Hack Reactor grads, et cetera, and why they're amazing. And I'd say it starts at all parts of the KPIs are at all parts of the pipeline. The first part of the pipeline is admissions. So just having an incredible admission cycle that filters out people who, one, may not be that serious about programming. I met a lot of people who are excited about an app idea and they think they should be a software engineer, but they don't understand that there's a lot of work that goes into doing that, and maybe they should just be a product person. So being able to parse that out from the beginning is a KPI for us. Also being able to train people for the interview so that we can continue to give people who have lesser opportunities at that education to be able to take advantage of getting through that tough interview. So we have programs like Telegraph Academy, like Telegraph Prep, like Code Ramp, which are organizations within our organization that work towards getting coding education and even just technical education to people of color, women, et cetera, et cetera. So first part of the pipeline is admissions. Second part of the pipeline is how well are you teaching people? And that really comes in, are you teaching in the relevant technologies? Are you talking to companies about their hiring practices and tweaking your or tweaking our curriculum towards that? Things like that. And then lastly, it's the actual hiring partners, as well as making sure that students are ready for the interview itself. And the way that we measure that is just through outcomes. Hack Reactor itself has a 98% placement rate, average starting salary of $105K. So in terms of the product itself, I think that our KPIs are working really well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For us, we're at about 92%, and that's across all campuses.
Competing, guys, they're competing.
Yeah, that's across all campuses. But we've adopted the California standard for professional schools, and that's the toughest standard in the country. And that standard it has a higher limit as to what is acceptable. So for the way we track ours is 6 months out. Are those students employed in full-time jobs? So we don't track internships. You know, it's full-time work within 6 months. As far as the program, we have a pretty intense curriculum team that is constantly working on our program and improving it. And we actually tailor our program regionally and specifically for the campuses that we have to see what the need is in the local area. So what we teach here in San Francisco is a little different than what we teach in Austin, Texas, and which is a little different to Phoenix, right? So we're massaging our curriculum, and we're actually able to do some A/B testing based on changing around the order of our program because we have so many campuses. So it's actually really interesting to be in the classroom, knowing that there's a classroom a couple states away where they're teaching the same thing but in a completely different order, and we're able to track outcomes of which class is more successful at a faster rate. So it's an interesting prospect.
Yeah, and I'd say from a metric standpoint, we really separate metrics into 3 categories, which really reflect kind of the reality that we're a for-profit business. I'll talk about that in a second, but we talk about satisfaction, learning, and outcomes. So outcomes is what a lot of us have been talking about so far, but I would highlight that that's one of many areas that we think about when we think about the KPIs of our business. Satisfaction, you know, we use a metric called NPS, Net Promoter Score. Basically, it says, are people going to recommend General Assembly to other people? And that's how we get a gauge of, you know, not only are we providing a service of people are actually learning and they're getting jobs, we take it on ourselves as, you know, we're a business. People don't choose to have to put their money with us. They can go anywhere else as well. There's tons of great programs. We want to know that they're enjoying the experience as well. From a learning perspective, I think this is something we all obviously think about. These are graduation standards. This is how we know that our grads are actually getting a quality education, and that when we put them in front of hiring managers, we know that they have competencies and not just specific frameworks or technologies, but in broader pictures of just how, you know, computers work, things like that. And then obviously employment and outcomes. The General Assembly statistic is 99% of graduates get full-time place or get a outcome within 6 months. We actually had our results audited by KPMG, one of the big 4 accounting firms. Report just came out, I want to say last week, and this was a really big deal for us because it's one of the first times that in the bootcamp industry, an outside auditor has come in and actually validated and really said, you guys are not just making up these numbers, you know, we're a really, really, you know, young industry, really only 4 years old. And so having really strict, you know, requirements around what it means when we say that we have a job for a student, we've kind of gone through that whole auditing process.
Thank you. So that's awesome in terms of outcomes. Sounds awesome. Sounds like you're all doing A work. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, diversity. So it's awesome that, you know, you have maybe 100 candidates and 99 or 90% or more are employed within 6 months. But we all know that out of 100 candidates, less than 10%, except your school, which is 100% focused on people of color, less than 10% in this new pipeline are people of color. So what are your organizations, what are the actions that your organizations are taking to improve the ratio?
Sure, so I'll start. When we think about and measure diversity at General Assembly, we allow students to self-report around their racial and ethnic backgrounds. We're at what we call 38% non-white, as students have self-reported. Now that mixes in a couple of different types where, normally you may or may not consider different parts of minorities in non-white. So anyway, General Assembly, something that we've done, we launched something called the Opportunity Fund 2 to 3 years ago. I'm trying to remember exactly when. I was involved in launching that. And it was our really a stake in the ground that we wanted to say, we want to be able to accept people of many different types of backgrounds who may not be able to afford these programs. These programs are, if we didn't talk about cost at all, but these programs, they're expensive. They're 5 figures. And, the average price is often around $13,000, $14,000 for, a 3-month program. And so what the Opportunity Fund is it's a scholarship program for underrepresented groups to get free, access to these programs. The way we built this is we wanted to kind of have a pay-it-forward type of system. So we go out, we get donors, we ask them, what groups do you want to sponsor to come through General Assembly's program? And then we have, so we are not ourselves picking which groups. They identify, we want in San Francisco, Hispanic, people in the data science program. So they can get pretty specific about what they choose. And then we ask our graduates, our fellows, to then go volunteer for a nonprofit that supports younger youth getting into technology. So we work with Black Girls Code, All-Star Code, Code 2040, a lot of those organizations. So we try to kind of create a system where we're not only helping people who are immediately at the point of their life where they've already made the decision to go into tech, we're trying to think about the next 20, 30 years down the line. How do we get the kids who are 7, 8, 9 years old right now to believe that they could be in the position, they can see someone that looks like them, and start to chart a path toward that, so maybe they can be a computer science major when they go to college.
Awesome, thank you. Robert?
Yeah, sure, I'd like to add to that. So we have a very similar initiative. We have a fund as well, and we've actually spent over $1 million in the last year towards getting minority and underrepresented groups in our classroom. So we're actively working on that. We work with our partner companies as well. Like Atlassian has a partnership with our web dev program to get minority candidates into the classroom there. And they actually fund some of the program for those candidates, and we offer them internships with that company afterwards.
Perfect.
I think Airbnb has a program with our data science program. So they're a partner with our data science program, and they're actively looking for minority candidates to fill holes within. And for them, they actually pair while we're going through the program. They have mentors that pair with those particular students throughout the program, and then post-program internship where you continue to work with that mentor as a senior engineer sitting next to you side by side. So we're actively looking at solutions for this. We also have the benefit of having member companies within our space because we're also a co-working space. And that's limited to tech companies. Within the space also are companies that are in the inclusion and diversity space, like Change Catalyst. And Tech Inclusion works out of one of our spaces here in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And we have Div Inc. in Austin, which is a diversity incubator. So we actually offer those companies, those organizations, sometimes free or heavily discounted space to work from within our space, and that actually having the member companies within a space allows an opportunity to pair our students with companies to work on real world projects while they're going through the program. And I think it's huge to see students come out of the program having worked on and published something that is active in a real world scenario. So it's something that we're very conscious of.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, and we'll get Tamyra in the mix. Her jet was a little late, but it's here now. So
I think that all of the things that Telegraph Academy is about is obviously about diversity, but I also think about, myself as a Hack Reactor representative.
Yeah.
So Hack Reactor has been putting, over the last 2 or 3 years, has been putting a lot of resources towards diversifying its community. Starting first with Telegraph Academy itself. Just funding, making Telegraph Academy a thing, marketing Telegraph Academy. It's been a huge success. I think secondly, our prep program has been offered to over 450 students of color over the last year and a half. 91 of them have gone on to a program in our network. So 25% of students who we offer this fairly cheap program to have moved on to join our network, which has raised our numbers by a whole lot. I mean, the thing about it is that boot camps are positioned as an alternative for people who don't have the opportunity to get a 4-year degree. And unfortunately, we have still been serving the same type of people that could have those opportunities. So what we look for are ways to solve the problem. So as a person of color, it was really difficult for me to go to Hack Reactor because of tuition. So I raised tuition. So we've partnered with a school, with a funding source called We Finance, where students can refinance finance loans within our community so that they don't have to pay up front.
Right.
We also have a lot of financing partners that allow students to not pay the $17K that it takes to go to our school. They pay $1,000 up front, and then generally they get a job before they have to start paying it back. Make $105K after you get out of that program, you can easily pay back your loan. Yeah. So what we look for are the challenges that people who are underrepresented have coming in, and we ask them, like, what are the things that are difficult for you? And then we create systems that address those things specifically so that we can raise our numbers. And then secondly, an initiative that I'm actually going to be working on very soon is data. Like, how many applicants do we have per day that are from underrepresented groups? How many people are clicking on our website that are from underrepresented groups? And how can we use those metrics ourselves as a boot camp to get that to enrollment and then into outcomes? Yeah. Because it starts at the beginning of the pipeline. So I think, those are some of the things that we've been doing. The numbers have gotten a lot better over the last year and a half since TGA has been in effect. And I think that they're going to skyrocket once we make this a national thing.
My next question involves self-selection. Is the audience familiar with what self-selection is? Raise your hand if you are. Okay. So one big issue with, one barrier to entry with getting statistics up in our industry is this concept of a person self-selecting, meaning they know about this idea of having an opportunity to learn to code. But there's also a group of people, people that look like us, who are brilliant and aren't aware of that opportunity or are in some ways intimidated about first steps. What are all of your organizations doing from an outreach perspective to recruit our geniuses that are not self-selecting?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can start that. I'm sorry for being late, everyone.
That's okay, don't worry.
My name is Tamyra. I work in an organization called Yes We Code. So our mission is to connect 100,000 young people from underrepresented groups to tech opportunities. And so that's been a process. This is a good question because that's a process, just in terms of changing mindsets around who is competent as it pertains to tech skills. So one of the first things that we did was try to establish brand equity in spaces that were primarily Black and brown spaces. And so we make sure that we have youth hackathons. That's how we started our organization. We had a youth hackathon at Essence Fest, which is a magazine that's targeted towards African American women. We had presence at Congressional Black Caucus. So it's just about being in particular spaces that increase your brand equity. And then what happens is members of those communities look at your brand and they say, okay, yes, this is a partner, an allyship, or an inroad into this particular industry. So that's a place that we've been able to start. And then another part of it is you just kind of have to hit the streets and just be creative about where you connect with folks, be authentic about how you connect with folks, and offer opportunities in terms of on-ramps into the industry. That's the largest barrier that I've seen. People have, we had about 100 applicants to our first cohort, but we were only able to select a small amount, about 10% of that amount. But many of the young people had desire, motivation, but we didn't have the proper on-ramp to kind of fortify their skills to be ready for a boot camp environment. So we've been tinkering around that idea of how do we create more on-ramps for people that are ready to acquire skills today. So
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Just so that you know, after this talk, there's going to be a lab that focuses on us figuring out together some solutions. And I think one, you've just given us about two that we can probably all build on top of. Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll say for us, again, signaling is huge in this space. I think as an organization, we have to get the word out that we're supportive of diversity and inclusion. It's something that, yeah, all companies our size, we're 300 employees now. We're challenged by this, even internally as well. But I think we have to continue. It's part of our company ethos, and we have to continue to signal and support events like this, support the organizations that are involved in changing the spectrum, and that's something that our entire company is motivated by and focused on. So we do a lot of work internally to try and change the balance of our employers, but also to attract students in the space that are from diverse backgrounds.
One of the one key indicator for becoming, a really good developer is technical mentorship, being able to pair with people who are doing it on a day-to-day basis. What are your organizations doing or planning to do to strengthen technical mentorship in all of your programs? Everyone can improve in this space.
Sure.
So what are you guys doing to improve that close-knit relationship with the tech community so that people can pair with people like me on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So it's funny you say that. We just rolled out a mentorship program for each student that goes to our course. We actually have a mentor over right here. I hate to call you out, V,
Stan,
who's mentoring one of our current students. But I think we also realized, just as you said, mentorship is a key component to creating amazing developers and also creating great employees who are going to be comfortable in your space. So we're doing a scholarship with DACA right now that's specifically for underrepresented people. And one of the things that we had to put on the table was a mentor, because there's no way that this student is going to just take money. That's not the best way to get somebody integrated into tech. One of the best ways to do it is not only to provide opportunity, but to provide somebody to lead them through and also welcome them in. So mentorship opportunity, we are implementing mentorship opportunities for every student that goes through the Telegraph Academy program. And we just rolled that out, but we will be continuing to do that in the future.
I think for us, we have that built into our organization. Having the member companies within the space offers all kinds of opportunities there. There's plenty of work to be done there. That's one of the things that I actively do as an instructor. I communicate with the member companies and find opportunities within the space that and try and pair students to those member companies and pair them with senior engineers. We had great success with that in Austin, and as our capstone, we actually had 4 students work with our member companies as part of their capstone. So they're working on real-world projects before they get out of before they reach graduation. So I think it's really important to have those pairings available. We also work with external mentors. We have guest mentors come in on a regular basis. So I think all of that is part of the solution there. You have to have availability for mentorships to happen.
I agree. I mean, General Assembly, I think it sounds like we do a lot of similar things as you guys. We make it really part of the curriculum. In the admissions process, students are asked to identify job opportunities they might want to go into and start looking and identifying people that they want to reach out to and network with for coffee. We want people to be serious about this even before they come to our classroom for the first time. And when we think about building our employer partnerships, we're not just asking them to sign up for, attending a meet and hire or for, coming to do some interviews. We're asking them to engage with the classroom experience throughout the entire way. And a lot of times at some companies, when they're trying to maybe rebrand themselves, there's a lot of sexy tech companies, but what about all of the Fortune 500s that are not so well known for being a really great tech brand? We actually find a lot of success with maybe the non-tech Fortune 500s that want to actually really it's something exciting for their developers to feel like they're getting to do something exciting and build a new talent pool that wants to think about, say an insurance problem in a totally different and new way. And so we make it a large part of both the curriculum and our employer partnerships.
And Tamyra, you're right on the ground with Yes, We Code. What do you think some of the characteristics are? Even though you're working with youth, but humans are humans, we're all vulnerable when we learn. What do you think some of the characteristics of a solid technical or just a mentor would be that for our industry?
That's a good question. We actually do, we work with adults currently, young adults between the ages of 18 and 30. And we've had a lot of success connecting people with mentors. We actually take our folks who are currently enrolled at Dev Bootcamp, and we actually take them to tech offices after course to interact with engineers and get some technical assistance from engineers. Last night we were at Autodesk and we'll be at Pinterest next week. And so one of the things that I always try to elicit in those spaces of mentorship from our mentors is active listening. Allow people to unearth what it is that they may need assistance in, so that you can be of more accurate help and assistance. That's one of the things that I try to elicit. Also, someone that has the capacity for empathy, particularly as we're talking about people that may be experiencing stereotype, threat, or just general discomfort, transitioning, or vulnerability because you're learning something new. So if you're a mentor, you kind of have to be very attentive to that, and you have to be able to draw from that empathy to better guide their steps. And someone, for us, I think the jackpot as it pertains to mentorship is someone that also has a non-traditional background. I always get so charged up when I meet someone and they're like, yeah, I work at NASA and I started at community college.
Right.
So I really get really charged up, and I'm always have my ear out for someone that kind of has a similar background to the folks that we're trying to advocate for.
Thank you. We only have time for 2 more questions. Apparently our panel is we've run over time, so we'll have 2 more questions, and then we'll have a couple of questions from the audience. And any of you who want to answer these 2 questions are welcome to. One question is, what KPIs should prospective students use to gauge the quality of existing programs? So that's one question that you can choose to answer. And the last question that I really wanted to end on is a solutions-based question. And my last question is, what can we all do better to improve program quality and diversity? You guys can pick either question to answer, and then we'll open up for 1 or 2 questions.
I'll start with some of the KPIs for prospective students who are choosing coding bootcamps, because I think I probably have maybe one controversial piece in this that maybe other people wouldn't agree with. I think a lot of times when we think about higher education, one of the first things people ask is, what's the acceptance rate? You know, is it a single-digit percentage? Because that is supposed to indicate quality. You know, it's rigorous and tough to get in. I think General Assembly is one of maybe few schools where we just kind of really don't pay much attention to that. I think we would say look at the output on the end of where you're going to get, pay much less attention to what the acceptance rate is into the program.
Right.
If anything, I mean, General Assembly, we're the largest boot camp by far, I believe. We have 15 going on 20 locations around the globe. We've had a lot of experience with scale. I'd say, if anything, the fact that we are able to get such a large number of people through a program and still have 99% outcomes placement in 180 days means that, especially as a diverse candidate, you're like, you should maybe, stop and think, does that mean that more types of people are able to get through the program? Is someone like me able to get through it? So I'd say look at the outcomes rate, pay less attention to the acceptance rate, and really look at the graduation rate. Now, there could be a problem in the middle where lots of people get in, everyone gets, kind of thrown out, and then, okay, now you have a high rate at the end. We're 92% graduation rate as well, so we have a really high track record of, we do accept a lot of people, 92% of them graduate, and 99% of them get jobs. So I'd say those are the real kind of KPIs to pay attention to, but there's tons of other good ones as well.
I think we have time for a 20-second response from each of you on whichever question you choose, the one on solutions or the one on what you should look for in terms of KPIs from schools, and then we'll open it up quickly to one or two questions.
Yeah, I'd say that one thing that in a dream world, what I'd like all coding boot camps to get better at is making the environment, their internal environment, more inclusive in terms of not only like bringing in more people, but making sure that you have trainings around, and unconscious bias is like the one, but like allyship training, right? You shouldn't just be training people to be prepared to be underrepresented. You should be training people who aren't underrepresented to support the underrepresented at the same time. And that's something that I'm hoping that happens more often in boot camps. And then secondly, I'd say staff at a recent Hack Reactor campus, we just had 2 African American tech mentors start. We have, I think that's 50% of the instruction staff, and people were just blown away. We had 160 students that were like, oh my God, there are 2 black software engineers teaching me right now. And like, to see that was like kind of sad, but it was also like, wow. That's like the difference in perception that you have when you employ people who look like the people that you want to go for, or employ people for an inclusive environment. So,
I think for us, I agree with you. I think that I think students should come to the campuses, look around, see who's there, and see if there are people there that look like them. I think that's a really important metric, as well as communicating with the other students, seeing what the outcomes are. But I want to come to work and see an assortment of folks. Ideally, I'd like to be on a team that is diverse. And fortunately for us, we have a diverse instructional staff. So, and we're constantly working on that. But I think students want to feel comfortable. So inclusion is a huge part of what that KPI should be.
Yeah, I would agree with what Albrey said about developing inclusive environments, but specifically, I think having strong feedback cycles and feedback structures, so that when you're not just blindly unconscious bias and leave it right there, but really responding to what makes people comfortable or uncomfortable about your environment and using that information to improve your environment.
Thank you. It looks as if we've run out of time. I want round of applause for our panel. And now we'd like to open it up to one or two questions. Just one or two. We're running gravely over our time slot. Thank you so much for being
Hello,
here.
hi. My name is Catherine Posey. I work for the White House. I head up strategic partnerships and alliances for the United States Digital Service. I also founded Tech by Superwomen. Really excited to be at this panel and learn from all of you. One of the things that in a personal capacity sits on my mind a lot is how are we making sure that, especially when I think about women and people of color who are going through these programs, they're actually set up to succeed in advance within organizations. That seems very different than placement. And I know some programs are doing more skill-based assessment where it's teaching people one skill or two skills to match a need of a company as opposed to setting them up for success. And when you think about the burden of loans that they have to take on to do this, it's a real concern. So I'd love to know where you guys are at in terms of thinking about that. I know this is early, it's 4 years old in terms of an industry, but are we tracking advancement?
So is the question, are we tracking? Is that the question? Okay.
So, one, you have an amazing job. Let's talk afterwards. Secondly, I think that, it's at top of mind. I think that companies or boot camps, at least from Hack Reactor's point of view, we have realized that our product doesn't work for everybody. And in terms of expanding and being more diverse, we have to build those things in. So one thing that I spoke about before was our Telegraph prep program. The thing that made it difficult for me to even access Hack Reactor was not knowing what the interview was about. So we built a program that basically taught towards the interview. If you want to know the things you need to know faster, we're going to give that to you at a very cheap price. On the inside, we do mentorship programs for underrepresented people. We're looking towards getting hiring partners specifically for people who want to scale diverse teams, which means that we'll be tweaking the inside to make sure that those people are served and get to places where they need to be. So it really is tailoring a layer on top of your program, on top of your product, that helps people understand where they need to go and where they need to be to tweak the system that you already have so that they can succeed from the beginning. So yes.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but there is a breakout room, a lab that we can all go to talk about solutions for our coding camps to improve diversity and to improve the program. Please give a warm round of applause to our panelists.